The Intimin Blitz coaster, known now as the LSM Launch Coaster, is what I firmly believe to be the best roller coaster model in the world. Sure, you could make an argument for the Rocky Mountain Construction iBox coaster, but here's why I think the Intimin Blitz is better. One word: variety. It's okay to mimic your success as seen with all these hybrid coasters by RMC, but I absolutely love how different each Intimin Blitz coaster feels from the next. For those of you who need some clarification, Intimin is a renowned roller coaster manufacturer whose most successful coaster type ever is the Blitz coaster. The Blitz coaster uses LSMs, which stand for linear synchronous motors, and are the most popular and reliable way to launch roller coasters today. For some reason, Intimin stopped calling their LSM launch coasters Blitz coasters a while ago, but because Blitz coasters sound so much cooler, I'll be calling them that anyways. So far, there have been 17 official Blitz coasters, but personally, I count 18, and Intimin themselves would argue that 4 others should be added to the mix. If you're confused, don't be, I'll explain. The one Blitz coaster that I've decided to throw into this list is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Universal's Islands of Adventure. This coaster may have some tricks up its sleeve that none of these other rides have, but down to its core, it's an LSM launch coaster. It doesn't fall under any other coaster model by Intimin, and it's most similar to other coasters of this model. I think it's weird that Intimin doesn't consider this. As for the 4 that they consider Blitz coasters that I personally wouldn't, these are rides that are more similar to other coaster types they've done despite their use of LSM technology. Dueling Dragons at Guangzhou Sunigland is an interesting one to start with. It's essentially one sit-down coaster and one inverted coaster dueling side by side, the sit-down track of which technically would qualify as a Blitz on its own. But because no other Blitz coaster can double as an inverted coaster, that sort of disqualifies Dueling Dragons in its entirety in my opinion. Red Force at Ferrari Land is one of the tallest roller coasters in the world and mimics the same layout found on Intimin's old Strata coasters, King Ducat at Six Flags Great Adventure, and Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Those 2 rides used a hydraulic launch to get them to speeds fast enough to clear their enormous top hats. At the time, LSMs weren't capable of launching trains that fast, and it was unknown that the hydraulic launch would become so unreliable. If hydraulics turned out to be as inexpensive and consistent as LSMs, it would most likely have been used on Red Force as well. Storm Coaster at the Dubai Hills Mall was the first Intimin vertical launch coaster, a model that they debuted quite recently. I guess Intimin considers this a part of both models, but not on my watch. Not only is the 90-degree vertical launch not found on any other Blitz coaster, but Storm's lack of emphasis on fast snappy transitions keeps it off this list. Lastly, Zokan at Fuji-Q Highland is a brand new Intimin family launch coaster that opened earlier this year. The ride follows the same formula as similar Intimin coasters, sometimes referred to as straddle coasters. These rides have always used drag tires to launch their train, which makes Zokan a very weird outlier. Not to mention, some of the track profiling on that ride looks like it was designed by some knockoff manufacturer. Now that those are out of the way, I'd like to introduce the topic of this video in case it wasn't obvious enough already. Today, I'll be ranking all of the Intimin Blitz coasters, but only the ones I've ridden. I've experienced 9 of these located around the world, and there's still quite a few more out there that I'd love to check out someday. These include All Speeds at Chengdu Sunigland in China, a very similar ride to a Blitz coaster I have ridden, Terran at Phantasialand in Germany. This one has similarly great theming to Terran, but for whatever reason the train runs much slower through the layout, resulting in a tamer ride experience. Ice Speed at Mirabilandia in Italy is one that's been high on my bucket list for quite a while now. Aside from its uncomfortable looking restraints, the ride seems to provide an extreme layout similar to Maverick at Cedar Point in Ohio, another Blitz coaster I have been able to ride. Light of Revenge at Happy Valley Nanjing in China is once again very similar to a Blitz coaster I have ridden, that being Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa in Florida. That means it likely provides a tamer ride experience than much of the others, but should still be a very enjoyable coaster. The newest Blitz coaster to open around the world is Manta at SeaWorld Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. This is a triple launch coaster with a relatively modest height and speed, but it still appears more intense than rides like Light of Revenge or Cheetah Hunt. Nefeskesin at Vialand is a Blitz coaster located in Istanbul, Turkey. Though it's one of the shortest of the model, it seems like a fantastic and very intense launch coaster. 38 miles or 62 kilometers away, Redfire at Korsan Adası is another Turkish Intimin Blitz coaster. This one is an exact clone of Ice Speed at Mirabilandia, just with lap bar restraints instead of over-the-shoulder restraints. I suspect that this could be the best Blitz coaster I have not currently ridden. Shred the Sewers at Dream Island in Moscow, Russia is the only Intimin Blitz coaster situated completely indoors. This one seems to have a similar intensity to that of Manta at SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, so not the craziest thing in the world, but since you can't see what's coming, there's a unique dynamic to it. Soaring with Dragon at Hi-Fi Sunakland in China was the first Blitz coaster to use Intimin's high-speed switch track, allowing riders to go backwards. This is an absolutely ginormous coaster and one of the most beautifully presented as well. This is one of my top bucket list rides in the country by far. Steel Dolphin at Shanghai Haicheng Ocean Park, also in China, is probably one of the most enjoyable looking family coasters on the planet. It's got a similar thrill level to that of Light of Revenge and Cheetah Hunt, but it's got an entirely original layout with some spectacular theming. I'd also love to get on this one someday. Even though I haven't been on any of those, I really want wanted to take the time to highlight each since they're often overlooked in the coaster enthusiast community. Each of these rides absolutely contribute to the Blitz coaster's title of Best Coaster Model because they prove the sheer diversity of what you can do with LSM launches and Intimin's brilliant engineering. But now, onto my personal list featuring all 9 Blitz coasters I've had the privilege to experience. Number 9, Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa in Florida. Though the Blitz coaster model is mostly used to build some of the world's most thrilling roller coasters, Cheetah Hunt was the first one introduced as a family coaster. For that reason, I think some people were disappointed with the ride when it opened in 2011, but if you dial your expectations properly, I can't see how you'll get off this thing without a smile on your face. Cheetah Hunt contains 3 LSM launches throughout its layout, all of which are a blast, and it blends a lot of turns and airtime moments as well. The ride's best quality is its length. At more than 4,400 feet long, it's certainly a very long experience. I think it's a fantastic ride for young kids and thrill seekers alike, as it'll introduce the former audience to a more intense experience and will satisfy the latter audience with its speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. Number 8, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. Also located in the state of Florida, Hagrid's is the one coaster that Intimin themselves doesn't consider a Blitz, but I don't see how it isn't one. But we already dove into that earlier, so I'm going to take this time to really talk about the ride experience. Hagrid's is absolutely one of, if not the best family coaster ever built. With an insane 7 launches, a backward section thanks to a high-speed switch track, and the ride's most problematic but unique feature, a drop track, Hagrid's really has it all. In addition, it was themed to perfection with incredible architecture, animatronics, and onboard audio immersing riders into the Forbidden Forest. At more than 5,000 feet in length, Hagrid's is once again a very long ride, and I personally love how all of its unique elements come together to create a one-of-a-kind ride experience. It may only be 8 on this list, but that's simply because it's got some extreme thrill rides as competition. Number 7, Terran at Phantasialand in Germany. A ride that many may choose to rank higher on their lists, Terran is no doubt one of the most beautiful and well-themed coasters on Earth. The ride looks like something out of a dream with its imposing rockwork and medieval buildings which you pass over, under, and inside of. The ride features 2 incredible launches and a plethora of twists, turns, and airtime moments. The only reason it doesn't place higher for me is because of its inconsistent pacing. Towards the end of its first and second halves, Terran definitely lets its foot off the gas. But over time, I've appreciated this ride more and more and forgiven its flaws because one must understand how impossibly creative the park had to be to fit in a ride this good into such a small space. I sort of wish Terran was a bit more intense, but it's nonetheless a fantastic coaster. Number 6, Maverick at Cedar Point in Ohio. The original Blitz coaster opening in 2007, Maverick is arguably one of the most important coasters ever built. It opened during a period known as the Coaster Wars, where parks everywhere were building the tallest, fastest, and longest coasters known to man. But then Maverick comes along, opening at what was the biggest competitor in the Coaster Wars, at a modest 105-foot height. Maverick taught the industry that it wasn't at all about a coaster's stats, but how it uses them. With 2 LSM launches, one at the start uniquely acting as the ride's lift hill, and an unbelievable second launch inside of a tunnel, that's already a great start. But then you factor in Maverick's variety of elements with airtime hills, whippy transitions, fast inversions, and a beyond vertical 95-degree drop, the coaster really is something else. I feel like it's wrong placing Maverick at 6 because it really is one of the best roller coasters in the world. To give some perspective, I rank Maverick as my 22nd favorite coaster out of 780 I've ridden thus far. That means each of the top 5 on this list have to be at least 21 or higher on my overall coaster list. So if that doesn't speak to the model's quality, I don't know what does. Number 5, Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Virginia. Since I first rode this coaster in April 2022, I've considered it one of the most underrated roller coasters in the country. For whatever reason, this coaster has been unfairly overshadowed and critiqued. Yet I'm here to say that Pantheon is one of the best coaster layouts of all time. The ride features 4 LSM launches, 3 of which are experienced on the same section of track, called a swing launch. On this ride, it's what I like to call Intimin's first seesaw section, which was introduced to another Blitz coaster we'll talk about in a second. Riders will experience extreme airtime moments separating the launch sections, which are absolutely outstanding, in addition to a 178-foot tall vertical spike. The ride also has a super underrated second half with a 95-degree beyond vertical drop, an enormous outer banked airtime hill, an elongated 0G stall, and many high-speed rapid-fire turns. The coaster is also as smooth as they come with the most comfortable trains in the business, which is another claim to fame for this amazing coaster model. Number 4, Toutaudis at Parc Astérix in France. For the longest time, the country of France was lacking in a true standout coaster, but they finally got it this year with Toutaudis. This coaster was first announced in 2018, and I vividly remember that announcement day thinking this had the potential to be one of the best launch coasters in the world. And sure enough, it did. But it isn't far superior to Pantheon, which a lot of people thought would be the case. As a matter of fact, I think if you stripped both rides away from their theming, Pantheon would rank just slightly higher. But where Pantheon is lacking in theming, Toutaudis is one of the most well-themed and beautifully presented coasters ever built. I draw these comparisons to Pantheon because the two coasters share similar elements and layouts. Toutaudis has a nearly identical beginning and middle, even featuring the same seesaw section from Pantheon. But it's after that drop where Tutada starts to differentiate itself. Literally, my only complaint for this ride is that nasty trim brake that was placed on the top hat. Intimin called this an anticipation stall, but in my opinion it was just a buzzkill that takes away from the 101 degree beyond vertical drop. Other than that, this is a masterpiece of a coaster and one of my new favorites in Europe. Number 3, Taiga at Linnanmäki in Finland. A ride I flew to this country solely to experience, Taiga was absolutely worth the trip. There are a few coasters I've enjoyed more than this one because it's incredibly smooth, comfortable, and features one of the most creative layouts I've ever seen. The ride was built on a hill, which it absolutely utilizes to its advantage. At various points throughout the layout, Taiga builds speeds when you least expect it, contributing to the ride's masterful pacing. It features 2 LSM launches, plenty of whippy airtime moments, and maybe its most surprising elements, its 4 inversions. Some of these are graceful, some of these are intense, and some of these whip you around, but whatever the case, they all contribute to the ride's incredible diversity, which is easily one of my favorite things about Taiga. There's no element that doesn't belong and nothing that this ride truly lacks. It just so happens that 2 other coasters go above and beyond in creating a perfect ride experience. Number 2, Batman Gotham City Escape at Parque A. Warner Madrid. This is a coaster I fell in love with after my most recent trip to Europe. It easily became my favorite ride in Spain and one of the best in the world. Batman ranks at the number 2 spot because I feel that it meets every criteria that makes a great roller coaster. You have an amazing layout with every force imaginable, hang time, airtime, positives, and the list goes on. The ride is incredibly smooth and comfortable, and it's got some excellent theming to top things off, even going as far as onboard narration that progresses the ride experience. At the top of the drop, there's a trim similar to the one on Tutada. On that ride, I felt that it took away from the ride experience, but on this one, it actually feels like an anticipation stall. The onboard sound is synced up, the trains aren't long so everyone is hanging over the edge, and because of how steep it is, you're still able to get airtime. Batman features 4 distinct inversions, all providing different sensations similar to Taiga, and it's got some of the most shocking airtime I've ever experienced. This camelback and this drop down are just unbelievable. What more is there to say about Batman? I loved this ride so much, and it pains me that it's so far from home because I wish I could ride this thing all the frickin' time. But with how much I praise Batman, I still have one coaster above it, and I'm sure this won't come as a surprise, but it's number 1 Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. That's right, this is the same park that has Hagrid's, meaning there's 2 Blitz coasters here. But not to worry, they are about as different as they come. If you thought Batman was a complete ride experience, which it is, Velocicoaster will absolutely knock your socks off. The difference in theming is that while Batman has good theming, Velocicoasters is easily some of the best in the world. This is the kind of stuff you'd expect to see on a Universal dark ride, but not a coaster. The experience begins the second you enter the queue line with a compelling storyline and convincingly real animatronics. Then you get to the layout, and I think what Universal did here was perfect. The first step begins in the Raptor Paddock with beautiful landscaping and rockwork fully immersing you in a Jurassic World. The elements here are all spectacular, but not super intense because they're trying to gradually build you up to the second half, which is just balls to the wall. There's an outstanding second launch, an amazing drop off the top hat, loads of airtime, and some world-class inversions, including the best inversion of all, the Mosasaurus roll. This is one of the single greatest moments on any coaster and a banger ending to Velocicoaster. Not to be over dramatic, but when I'm sitting on that brake run, I either feel like running back in line or bursting out into tears over how good this thing is. Velocicoaster is the best roller coaster in Florida, one of the best in the country, and one of the best in the world. It really doesn't get much better than this thing. But with that, I'd now like to invite you guys to comment your favorite Blitz coaster in the comment section below. I'm expecting a lot of Velocicoasters, especially if you haven't been to Europe or Asia, so maybe give me a number 2 or 3 as well. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. Until next time, I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.